All right, so let me introduce our first speaker by way of a story. Once upon a time, a girl was born on a Georgia farm. Three generations of farmers who worked the red Georgia clay growing peanuts. She worked on that farm, hard on that farm. She also worked hard in school. And she went to the University of Georgia, where she studied, of all things, journalism. She went to Washington, where she was a press secretary and then a chief of staff. And then she worked on the House subcommittee on peanuts and tobacco. I don't think they're connected, but that was the subcommittee. And she is now the #2 person at the United States Department of Agriculture. I've known Krysta Harden. She's participated with us before. But one of the things that caught my attention recently was a story I heard her tell about a trip she took to Africa, meeting with women farmers throughout Africa, accompanied by 5 U.S. senators, 5 women U.S. senators. Would you join me in welcoming Krysta Harden? Hi, Krysta.
Thank you, Frank. Good to see you.
It's all yours.
Thank you. I'm going to...
inspire us.
Well, I'll do my darndest. It's great to be here, and it's great to be with students. First of all, thank my predecessor, Kathleen Merrigan. Thank you for your support, your leadership, but mostly your friendship. She left me very, very, very big shoes at USDA to fill, and I constantly go to her for guidance and for help. And I know that she's always in my corner, and she's in all of your corners. She brags on you students, whether you're in meetings with her, classes with her, or whatever. She knows that you have the pulse of what's going on. I'll tell a couple of stories, and I do have a good speech I've got to make sure that I give because it has all the facts and all the information that we want to make sure that you know. But I'll start a little bit about the trip to Africa. Frank teed it up very nicely. It was great to be part of a CODEL, which is a congressional delegation. A trip really looking at agriculture in some really tough situations, and with 5 women senators, the first ever, frankly, where it was all women. We met with a lot of different women and a lot of different circumstances, and there's one I think that Frank's probably talking about that we met called Miriam. We traveled on very, very bumpy roads, way up in the mountains of Ethiopia. It took, I don't know, probably 45 minutes or longer from the main highway to get to her farm. She's a single mom, had 2 daughters, no teeth, I remember that, but a big smile, very happy woman. She was very, very proud to show us her little farm. She had a cow. She had a lot of different kind of agriculture. She was growing teff and some other vegetables and some fruits. She was telling us about her 2 daughters that walked to school, how proud she was that they now had a solar panel for their little hut so they could have a light at night for the girls to do their homework past dark. And she was also kind of just mentioned in passing about carrying water for her cow and for her family. And we asked her how far, and she said over an hour. Over an hour for any drinking water or to water her cow. So we're all kind of sitting there very moved, very emotional with this story. And the chairwoman, Senator Stabenow, said, well, what's your biggest challenge, Miriam? I'm farming and raising your girls as a single parent. What's your biggest challenge? And with this great big smile, she said, I don't have any. Carrying water, raising girls, living in a hut with only a single solar panel to provide any kind of lighting or heating. And she didn't think she had challenges. Very, very humbling experience for many of us. I'm going to tell you another story, and then I am going to give this speech, about a man, and I will try not to be emotional because it's about the best person I know. It's my daddy. He's a peanut farmer, as you've heard. It's the reason I worked on that peanut subcommittee on the House Ag Committee. My parents married very young. We don't hear that much in our country anymore, but they were 15 and 17. Had me at 16. My dad was 18. They graduated from high school, living with my mother's parents. And my daddy went to college, left Mama, went to college, left me, and then my granddaddy died. So after a couple of semesters, in those days we called it quarters, Daddy came home, left his dreams of being an engineer, of building bridges and roads and things he wanted to come back to our family farm, because that's what you do in agriculture. That's what you do. He had no choice. He came back to the farm and has been there ever since. And that was 50-something years ago. So when I was nominated to be deputy, he came up here for my hearing, my confirmation hearing. He and Mama don't leave the farm at the same time, so it's his turn to come, and he came. And, you know, for Daddy, he's ready to go almost the minute he hits the ground, because it's too much concrete up here for him. But we had a chance to talk to him about agriculture in a way that I probably haven't a lot. It's just so much in our blood. It's just so automatic. It's something that I just never even really gave much thought. Did he ever have a choice knowing that he didn't? And did he resent that? Was he sad he gave up a career which would have probably paid a lot more money, not had the risk, not had the demands? He could have seen the world like I have. He could have done a lot of different things if he was not tied to running irrigations, to taking care of livestock, to being there for all of us and making sure that farm. Because in Georgia, you can farm just about 12 months. There's about 6 weeks in there you can't. So it's pretty much all the time, and it's clearly 7 days a week. So I asked him, I was kind of emotional about this. This is the biggest honor I could ever have in my life, to represent the industry I love so much at this level. So proud he was there. And I asked him, do you wish things had been different? Do you wish you'd had other choices? Do you wish that the responsibility of taking over not only his family farm, but my mother's, and merging those together? And he said, oh, baby, that's what he always says, never thought twice. We feed people. We feed people. Is there not a greater honor in the world? I don't feed just you and your sister and your mama and our community. Our crops go everywhere. We make a difference. And I make sure that our land is taken care of. I make sure there's habitat. He didn't use the word habitat, I don't think. He wouldn't have. But there's a place for birds and deer and other wildlife. What an honor. What a privilege. That is something we have to think about when we think about agriculture. The people like my daddy. And the people you see on the screen. Today, the Secretary Vilsack is at Michigan State, and he's making a big announcement about some of the work we're going to be doing at USDA. Really using the resources that we have in a way that makes a difference, a better difference, a bigger difference for the environment. And he's going to have at least 3 farm families there with him. This is one of them. I'm not going to go through their stories, but I really encourage you to go to our website and learn about these folks. When you're wondering who's farming, when you're wondering what people are like, when you're wondering what's going through their minds and what's making them make decisions, here's some really, really good examples of people. And I'm told I have a clicker here. It's just a clicker that can go through just a couple. These folks were in California. It's great. If you might notice, women in the audience, all girls. I've met this family. These 4 women are running this dairy, and that is hard, hard work. But they're going to keep that farm in their family. I don't know, maybe this is just a pointer. Let me figure this out. I am not good at this. There you go. Here's another one in New York. Great story about a grain and vegetable crop farmer. All the work, the decisions they're making on their farm that make a difference. It's about productivity. It is about bottom line. It is about doing what's right. And one more. Well, maybe not. Well, there you can see. I told you I can't do that. Thank you for whoever's back there fixing that for me, because I can't do it. You know, farmers and ranchers in our country at all times are 1 part nurturer, 1 part trend forecaster, 1 part scientist, and 1 part business person. They're responsible for securing food supply that can satisfy the changing demands of a growing world population with increasing sophisticated taste. They constantly search for new technologies and new ways to market their products. They have a role to play in ensuring that healthy food moves from the fields where it's grown to where it's needed most, so that no one around the world suffers from hunger or food insecurity. They're also preparing for an uncertain future. They have seen firsthand the growing threat that climate change and increasingly severe weather presents to agricultural production, forest resources, and rural economies. It's been raining in my home area of Georgia for 8 straight days. At a time when we're normally in the field, when I was home in March, we already had corn about this high. And it's raining and folks can't get into the field. They understand severe weather. They understand these changing patterns and what it means when they're unpredictable, when you normally should be able to be in your business. If you were in a manufacturing plant, you'd be in there making something. You can't get in the field to even start in many cases. These events threaten the security of our food supply. Today, an estimated 805 million people around the world, that's 1 in 9, do not have access to sufficient supply of food, of safe, affordable food. The UN estimates that the worldwide demand for food will increase by 70% by 2050. In order to meet this growing demand for food, our producers have to prepare for and mitigate the impacts of climate change and severe weather. I know, as the farmers and ranchers and forest landowners that work across the country, that climate change is a threat. It is real. Climate change threatens the bottom lines and the livelihoods of producers and weakens rural economies. And it has implications not only for agricultural producers and forest landowners, but for every American. Our producers are living the threat of climate change in rural America. They feel its impacts every day, including in their pocketbooks. Drought alone was estimated to cost this country $50 billion, that's with a B, dollars, between 2011 and 2013, and a figure that is only increasing as the prolonged drought continues. Our farmers and our ranchers and our forest managers and landowners are taking action to keep the land healthy, productive, and resilient. They're not doing it just to protect their bottom lines, but to ensure that their operations will be there for the next generation of producers who will come after them. Farmers and ranchers and forest landowners are in the climate solutions business. From producing biofuels and installing renewable energy systems on their operations to discovering and implementing the latest conservation techniques, they've driven the development of many of the most critical components of the fight against climate change. Working with producers, USDA has enrolled a record number of acres of private land, working lands, in conservation programs over the past 6 years, working with as many as 500,000 farmers and ranchers each year to implement conservation practices on their operations. USDA programs have helped to reduce net greenhouse gas emissions by over 360 million metric tons since 2009, or approximately 60 million metric tons per year. Now that's the equivalent of taking 12.6 million cars off the road, or more than 5.4 million homes' energy use for a year. To create jobs in rural communities, drive economic growth, help reduce dependence on foreign oil, and reduce greenhouse emissions, USDA continues to aggressively pursue investments in renewable energy developed from non-food sources. We've also invested more than $600 million in research by USDA scientists and land-grant universities. Our network of climate hubs established last year and located all across the country help to disseminate these tools and other information tailored to specific conditions in the region in order to help producers implement climate-informed management practices. On a recent trip to Puerto Rico, somebody had to go to Puerto Rico, and I did volunteer. I was truly impressed by the collaboration taking place at every level. We had state and local folks, and they know about climate change. They have more severe hurricanes, loss of coral reef, a number of different issues. And so we are trying to make sure farmers can have the tools to stay on the farm there instead of leave, and leave the land. We're working with all of our partners in that region on that. We're doing a couple of other things at USDA I want to make sure that y'all are aware about. This year we are co-chairing an organization called the Global Research Alliance on Agriculture Greenhouse Gases. I hope there will be an acronym because that is a long title. We'll be hosting researchers from over 40 countries this summer in Ames, Iowa, all focused on efforts to improve conservation practices, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and increase carbon sequestration. We're also leading efforts to establish a global alliance on climate-smart agriculture, I hope you're aware of this, who aim to improve integrated climate change planning into agriculture development and assistance. Finally, we are preparing a major assessment on the effects of climate change on global food security. Very excited about this report. It will be out later this fall. Meg, where's Meg? Right here, our scientist who's working on that is with me today. She spoke at this conference last year. Also today, Secretary Vilsack is at Michigan State. I mentioned that earlier. And he is announcing, I can't get too far ahead of him because his announcement's not till 1, but I'll give you a sneak preview and ask you to go to our website later today and check this out. It's very exciting for us. It's a series of 10 building blocks for smart climate agriculture and forestry. It is an ambitious, voluntary strategy that rewards and builds on the good work of farmers, ranchers, and forest landowners to reduce climate impacts and support future food security for our nation. The strategy will use USDA existing programs to provide financial and technical assistance to support producers as they further reduce greenhouse gases, generate clean, renewable energy, and increase carbon sequestration by over 120 million metric tons of CO2 equivalent per year by 2025. The strategy is divided into 10 building blocks that focus on agriculture and forestry practices that reduce greenhouse emissions, increase carbon sequestration, as well as make improvements to energy efficiency and renewable energy production. These practices will include soil health, nitrogen stewardship, livestock partnerships, conservation of sensitive lands, grazing and pasture lands, private forestry growth and retention, stewardship of federal forests, promotion of wood products, urban forest, and energy generation and efficiency. This strategy really recognizes and rewards what farmers and ranchers are already doing, and it gives them access to resources and assistance so they can do even more. These will provide economic and environmental benefits to producers by improving efficiency, increasing yields, and reducing risk to the operations. It really does help us become hopefully more recognized as a leader in climate-smart agriculture. It demonstrates to the world that these sectors can provide solutions to reducing greenhouse emissions. At the same time, they're boosting productivity. This initiative is designed for working farms and ranches and forests and production systems. It encourages actions that enhance productivity and avoids actions that would prohibit or inhibit production. It focuses on multiple economic and environmental benefits, and it will rely on partnerships with producers and stakeholders both within and outside of the food and forest industries. I think we all know over the next decade that all Americans in all walks of life, certainly including farmers and ranchers, will be facing the growing challenges of a changing climate. In order to address climate change, we have to get ahead of it and know and innovate in the face of challenge better than rural America. It will not be easy, I think we know that, but I'm confident, and I know all of us at USDA are, that American agriculture and our nation's forests can continue to play an important role in reducing greenhouse gas emissions, increasing carbon storage in our forests and our soils, and rise to the challenge of helping to feed the growing population of our world. Thank you for that. Frank, I think we have time for a couple of questions.
Let me come up and help. Thank you very much, Krysta. All right, we have time for a couple of questions. Who's got a question for the Deputy Ag Secretary?
Can I ask one?
Can you ask one?
Is that allowed?
Go.
I have found, and just traveling around and talking to students, they're just so bright. They're so talented. First of all, I know that
Who's bright?
Everybody here. I know that our world, our country, is going to be in a better place when you're in charge. I just have such confidence in our young people. I just see their innovation, their creativity, their energy, their enthusiasm. They're doing things that I would not have thought of done. I I enjoyed my college years. I made pretty good grades, but I had fun. I think these kids must study and work all the time.
They don't have any fun.
I don't think so. They're here at 9 o'clock, before 9 o'clock.
All right, so who's got a question?
I want to ask them something. I'm not kidding.
Okay.
If you could do one thing for climate change, just one. Everybody has a long list. Thinking about where I am, what we're doing, I need your advice. Something that you think that we should do. Reasonable, that can be done, not pie in the sky, but concrete, affordable, doable, reasonable. Any advice? It's okay?
I'd like to see more produce.
Tell me your name and where you're from. Where'd you grow
Lily
up?
Zhang, from here.
Okay, that's fine.
Abe.
That's not a problem.
I
I love DC.
Oh, well, originally from Salinas, California, actually.
That's what I meant. Where did you grow up? California. Okay.
Salinas, yeah.
Okay.
I'd love to see more agriculture, as in fresh fruit and
How's that help
vegetables.
climate? She's asking
You
a
have to
climate.
help the climate.
Grown more across the country as opposed to the majority of it grown in California, which is dealing with a lot of drought issues. Because I know that a lot of our agriculture currently comes from abroad. Our produce comes from abroad. So I'd like to see more
Just got a
grown
couple
here.
minutes, so let's
Okay.
move it around.
Sounds good.
Go ahead. In the back. Shout it out.
I'm Dawn. I'm local, and I would like to see a move away from animal agriculture or reduced meat consumption and animal products. So, that's very reasonable, and it should be on the agenda, and it's often overlooked. And they're key contributors. Meat consumption.
Okay.
is a key
Anybody
contributor.
else? Any other ideas?
I'm happy
Down?
to answer a question too
Okay.
at this point.
Go ahead. You want to take a couple more observations?
Yeah,
and then you
yeah,
can
that'd be great.
Answer them. Come down here. One or two more. Go ahead.
I'm Sarah Duthill. I'm from North Carolina.
What
Your
school?
I see a little bit of southern accent in there, just a little.
Just a little. Georgia's our neighbor. I'm from Middlebury College. And I've been really inspired recently by vertical farming. I would love to see more innovation with science and agriculture.
Why don't you answer those as you see fit?
That sounds great. Thank you all for great ideas. I think the fruit and vegetable, I think that's something that is being tried. We grow a lot more fruit and vegetables in my state of Georgia. Part of it has been, frankly, as land has been developed in Florida, and there's pressures on Florida, it is moving up into my part of the world. So I think you will continue to see that as consumption goes up and there's value there. I spent a whole lot of time trying to get folks to come into agriculture, talking to beginning and new farmers and ranchers, encouraging them, and often that's a way for folks to enter is growing vegetables or fruits, and they can do it as they're trying to get established. They can still do it while they're working sometimes on other jobs to help them with income. But that's a great way, and I do believe that you're going to see continued. It's a great way for women to get involved, frankly, in agriculture. So I think you're exactly right. We're going to do that.
Next.
The meat lady, right? My question for you is just meat in our country or around the world?
Around the world.
You know,
We're the top of consumers, so there's a lot we can do with individuals, as well as not having that as the automatic consumption for everybody, and reducing the growing consumption globally.
Go ahead.
well, I just think food choice is something, it's voluntary. People are going to eat what they want and what they need. How to regulate that, I think, would be very difficult. I think at USDA, we talk a lot when you talk about My Plate for nutrition. We talk about lean meats, making sure folks are eating as healthy as they can. And as they eat more vegetables, maybe there will be less meat, I don't know. But it's an interesting concept. I know a lot of folks are talking about that now. I appreciate that. How we do it, I'm not quite sure yet.
And your last one.
Last one, remind me. Vertical farming, yes, I love it, it's great. Especially in urban areas where folks who don't have a lot of land or in the pressures of the Northeast or in California in certain places, there's a lot of development, seeing the vertical farming. I'm going to New York City in the end of May to meet with farmers there on rooftops and vertical farming. Who would have thought? You tell my daddy I'm going to New York City to see a farmer, he thinks I'm crazy. He thinks I'm, just saying I'm going there to play, and I'm really working, I really am.
Forget about it.
It's exciting, though, to see that.
Krysta, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. And your story about your daddy and your story about Africa are what stories are all about. So
Thank you,
very,
Frank.
very
Always
much.
good to be here. Thank you.
Actually, before you go, One of the things I should tell you is we talked to folks at USDA about students here and internships. You offer internships if they're interested. What should they do?
I'm so glad. Go to our website, or maybe you should go try to find me, and we can cut through some of the red tape. And I'm Krysta Harden.
Be careful what you say. Go ahead.
No, I love it. At USDA.
Krysta.Harden.
Where's Rachel? All right. Where's my Krysta.Harden at USDA.gov. Sorry, I should know my own email. We love interns, especially those, from around the country, local, it doesn't matter. Sometimes there is a lot of hassle to do that, but we need your bright minds, we need your ideas, we need your creativity, we need good public servants.
Bravo.
Thank you, Frank.
Thank you, Krysta.